A black limousine moves through the city like a dark thought on wheels. Rain needles the glass. Streetlights smear into gold and white. Inside, the air smells faintly of expensive cologne and stale business decisions. A man in an impeccably cut suit sits by the window, hands folded, eyes ledger still. He is 39, or maybe 40, old enough to know the price of everything and the value of almost nothing. He is called Julian Hayes. He is the CEO of a company that makes satellites and mortgages and occasionally promises. He is used to people wanting things from him. He is not used to children whispering. A small shape slides through the gap of the rear door, as if it belongs to a different weather. A girl of 7 appears with an umbrella dripping like a slow clock. She has a raincoat that is 2 sizes too big, sneakers with 1 blue shoelace and 1 red, and eyes that measure the interior of the limo the way a cartographer measures coastlines. Girl, you need a wife, and I need a dad. Julian blinks. The sentence arrives like an invoice with no preface. He exhales, a practiced man's breath. The limo continues to move, the city a blur that refuses to submit to his control. Julian, who are you? Girl, Maya. My mom says grown-ups can buy anything except what matters. She says you look like you can buy things. She sits down opposite him without permission. A small, defiant smile. Rain beads on her umbrella and mutes into the leather seat. Julian, my name is Julian Hayes. How did you get into my limo? Maya, I walked. You have a sign on your building that says Hayes. I thought maybe you were the owner. Owners are good at sharing. Julian's mouth tightens. Owners are, in his world, collectors. He looks at her more closely now. There is a patchy bandage on her knee. A sticker of a cartoon astronaut peeks from under her sleeve. She is not the kind of child who should be in a limousine, and yet she is perfectly at home in small rebellions. Julian, where does your mother work, Maya? Maya, at the bakery on 5th. You passed it once. It has a crooked sign that says Buns and Sons. Mom makes bread like she stitches things back together. She says she'd make you cake if you were a friend. Julian frowns. His memory cleaves to a Friday afternoon a year ago, a delivery van, an accident, a name he has the power to erase but does not. He is careful with that memory. It is stitched with guilt. He looks at Maya and sees a ripple of that other life, not identical but related. Julian, why do you think I need a wife? Maya, because you look tired in the places people smile. My mom says when a grown-up has too many empty chairs, they need someone to sit in them. Also, my teacher says all families are different, and some are right for each other. There is a bluntness about Maya's speech that both disarms and anesthetizes him. He is an expert at negotiations, at reading a room and leaving with more than he brought in. He has never been read by a child. Julian, and you need a dad. Maya, yes. Dads fix things. Not just bikes. They fix stories. They tell the bits that come after scary monsters. My dad left when I was a baby. He left a red sock and a note that said sorry in the middle, and then he took a job looking for stars on boats. Mom says he might still be looking. Julian glances at her hands. Small, sticky with rain, perhaps with pastry glue from the bakery. He hears, behind the pragmatism, the flex of a small human heart that keeps trying to tie 2 halves into something whole. Julian, why tell me? Maya, because you look like someone who knows how to buy things that are hard to find. Also because you were alone in a big car, and that makes you look like you're waiting for something you forgot. His eyes narrow, and for the first time in a long while, Julian feels like he's been given a prompt that doesn't come with an exit clause. Julian, where are your guardians? Where's your mother now? Maya, she's closing the shop. She told me to come and find a man and ask him for a favor. She said if I said it softly like a secret, he'd be nicer. She also said that if the man didn't like me, maybe he'd like cake less. He inhales sharply. The city outside is a soft smear of headlights. The limo's driver, a man named Victor who knows the requirements of discretion as if it were religion, keeps the meter of silence steady. Julian, your mother told you to ask me for a favor? Maya, she did. She said you were powerful and lonely, and that both are useful. She said you have a soft spot because you once gave bread to a stranger with a hat on fire and then pretended not to. She said she didn't know you, but that she liked your building. Julian's throat tightens at the mention of the bread incident. He had stood on the pavement and handed a croissant to a man with a cigarette more habit than warmth and had felt something like a fissure open inside of him. He had, in that fissure, seen a version of himself that might have been kinder. Julian, what favor exactly? Maya, will you be my dad for a day? Mom says if I spend a day with a man who knows how to run big things, maybe I'll learn to tell him what I want. She also says maybe you'll learn how to eat lunches that are not spreadsheets. She said if you say no, it's okay, but if you say yes, she'll bring cake. Julian tries to be empirical. He notes the impossibility. A CEO does not babysit. But he also notes the calendar, a void of obligations tonight, a rare blackout in his schedule. He is, for reasons he cannot immediately confess even to himself, tempted. Julian, you understand this is not how hiring works. Maya, neither is family, but it happens anyway. He allows a small, involuntary smile. It is a fissure they both may slip through. He leans back and studies her. She is innocent and not naive. Her askinglessness is a strategy. He thinks of his own childhood, of a father who taught him to count money and never taught him to count feelings. He imagines the possible economy of a day spent with a child. Full refunds, interest, the possibility of compounding. Julian, one day. Maya, two. Mom says if you like it, do too. He thinks of the board, of investor calls, of the scheduled annihilation of a competitor's small subsidiary, and then chooses instead a small, rebellious verb. Julian, too. But you must be home by 9. Maya, deal. Also, I get to pick dinner. Julian is not used to making deals where he is not the party extracting more. He is used to being the house. He nods, which is almost consenting. The limo pulls up to a tall glass building that is his. The security gate recognizes him by the curve of his jaw. He walks out with Maya by his side, tiny and small, but possessing the authority of a person who has rehearsed courage in a bakery doorway. Together, they enter a building full of the next day, prototyping labs, conference rooms that smell of dry erase fluid, portraits of men who smiled as they made fortunes. They ride to his penthouse, a space that mistakes minimalism for meaning. It is lit by a single lamp and contains carefully placed emptiness. Photographs in silver frames show Julian with people who are not there anymore. There are trophies that say leadership and excellence, and one small plaque that reads, "Remember why." Maya's eyes roam. She sees a world that is tidy and very hungry for things to hold. Maya, do you sleep in a bed or in a briefcase? Julian, both, sometimes. She giggles at the image and then stops, focusing. Maya, can I see your office? He shows her the room where decisions that affect hundreds of lives are made on paper. The desk is huge, the chair is black and deep, and the windows register the length of the city. Maya climbs onto the chair the way she climbs onto counters, without permission but with grace. She places her feet on the desk and studies a pen like it might be a relic. Maya, who sits here when you're sad? Julian, I sit here when I'm busy. The idea is, if you are busy enough, you do not have to be sad. Maya, that sounds expensive. He smiles, despite himself. He fetches a box of takeout from the fridge because there is no time to plan a proper dinner. He has a guest, and the city is unforgiving of plans. They eat noodles that drip and tell stories. Maya, my dad used to teach me to whistle. He taught me one song. It goes like this. She whistles a thin, complicated tune that finds a corner in the penthouse and makes it soften. Can you whistle? Julian remembers whistling as a teenager when he wanted to pretend he was lighter than he was. He tries and catches only a scratch of sound, a note that sounds like a hinge. Maya claps like it is the best concert she has ever witnessed. Maya, you practice. You're good at practicing. There it is, the observation that will rattle like a small stone in his shoe. Practice is what Julian trades in. He is practiced at not being hurt, practiced at not crying, practiced at stepping back when tides threaten to pull him into anything with more than a contractual obligation. Practice is a mighty thin armor. The next morning, he keeps a promise he made to a child and not to a contract. He takes a half day. He calls his executive assistant and says the word he has never allowed himself before. Family. She is efficient enough to say, noted, which in corporate language means, we will try to survive this. They go to the park. There are swings, and Maya swings like she can climb the sky. Julian watches without measuring value. He slides on the swing beside her because something in him wants to remember the mechanics of being small. A woman selling coffee gives them a look like they are trespassing in an older language of intimacy. They spend the day in small, public rituals. They feed pigeons bread that isn't artisanal. They climb a small hill and roll down it until the grass smells like childhood. They get ice cream and argue about whether sprinkles are conspiracies or joys. Julian tells Maya stories of faraway factories and quiet factories inside people. Maya tells Julian stories about her mother's napkin drawings, her teacher's favorite book, the map of her own heart that she draws with crayons. She draws him with a cape. He pretends not to notice. At a small table, between bites of a sandwich that has seen better days, Maya confesses an important secret. Maya, I like numbers, but not the kind you sell. The kind that tell how many stars you saw before bed, or how many hugs make your mom smile. I also like secret clubs. Mom used to make a secret handshake, but she lost the song. Julian, I know a secret handshake. It's called say yes and then think about it later. She thinks this is the funniest thing she has ever heard. As the second day progresses, the edges between Julian and Maya soften. He is not a natural with children. He is hesitant with tenderness like someone learning a new currency. Yet each moment with her trains muscles he forgot he had. He learns to make paper boats with the patience of a man negotiating with a union. He reads picture books in voices that are both ridiculous and exact. He learns to tie a shoelace the way a father would tie a shoelace, with loops that promise return. When the time comes to return Maya to her mother, Julian feels a constriction at the base of his neck. He promises to stay for cake, then 2 weekends, then a call. The requests are incremental, like pills given one at a time. He discovers that promises to children are different from business agreements. They are living things. Maya's mother, Lena, opens the bakery door with flour in her hair and a wary smile. She is 32, maybe 33, with hands that carry flour like metals and a laugh that has reservation in it. She thanks Julian with a voice that is practical and cautious, the kind that has been shaped by late nights and small losses. She asks about compensation like anyone would ask about the cost of a favor. Julian offers more than money. He offers time and a sort of slow, unexpected support. Lena looks at him and sees not just a man with power, but a man who has spent days making paper boats and telling stories in low voices. She sees that he flinches at the word dad in a way that suggests both absence and desire. They talk on the bakery's front step, speaking a conditional language where if is a bridge. Lena is clear-eyed. She has been alone long enough to know the difference between help and rescue. She wants stability for her daughter and, perhaps, for herself. Julian wants to mean something he hasn't allowed himself to be. They agree to start small. Weekends, shared dinners, a contribution to rent, and a job referral that might not change things overnight, but might make a difference. Time is slow. It is measured in small events. A mother's thank you at 2 a.m. when the oven is off. A visit to the hospital when Maya falls from a tree and manages to smile away the fracture. A PTA meeting where Julian attempts to be human in a room full of people who speak in sanctioned phrases. There are missteps. His attempt at assembling a bicycle ends with screws that belong somewhere else. And there are triumphs. He learns to braid Maya's hair and to make a supposed dad joke that elicits a laugh that is not performative. Julian begins to meet the people who orbit Lena and Maya. A neighbor who gives better advice than the internet. A teacher who wants to teach Maya math in ways Julian recognizes as honest. A lawyer who offers a pro bono consultation about child support. Julian learns bureaucracy both as a weapon and a tool. He provides resources, but also learns to show up without the pretense of superiority. There are nights when the old mechanisms of his life hum like machines needing oil. The board demands reorganization. A competitor launches a hostile campaign. Julian steps into the office with the same strategic mind, but a new parameter. There are now faces in his life that complicate decisions. He begins to make choices that take into account more than quarterly margins. He delays a layoff that would have been profitable, but brutal. It costs him a stock dip and costs him pride. It costs him nothing that truly matters, and everything that matters at once. Maya watches him with a mixture of wonder and grievance. She is honest about the gap between his promises and his presence. She punctures his performative guilt with small accusations that land like nets. You said you'd tuck me in, and you answered a call. These are the battles that teach him how to apologize and how to be consistent. Lena and Julian walk together on a street that smells of wet flour. There is a conversation they have that is tender because it is unromantic. It is about arrangements and expectations. Lena admits she is scared. Julian admits he is ill-equipped. and yet something has shifted enough that the admission does not ruin them. They are two people deciding to be practical about tenderness. They laugh at their mutual clumsiness. They eat cake that means more now than a mere dessert. Maya tries to invent the word dad uncle, a title that suits modern families. Julian pretends not to like it, then uses it in public to the delight of the neighbors. He becomes, in small ways, a different man. He receives calls that used to be urgent and lets them go to voicemail because his priorities have changed. A child's drawing is urgent now. There is a photo on his phone of Maya wearing a paper crown and looking like a small sovereign. He unlocks his phone and stares at the image the way a man studies a map before a voyage. A complication arrives in the form of a man who remembers being Maya's father and wants to be part of her again. He is younger than Julian, with a boat and genuine regrets, enough to pull at Lena's sympathetic mind. Julian feels threatened not by the man, but by his own insecurity. He must reckon with the idea that love is not a ledger to be balanced, but a messy ledger of choices. He attends a meeting with a lawyer where custody is discussed in the sterile language of timeshares and visitation. Lena resists putting a child in a calendar when she can keep a child in a life. Julian argues for what Maya needs, not for his ego. He argues in ways he never argued at the boardroom. He speaks softly, refuses to raise his voice, and wins not by power but by truth. The other father, when he appears at the bakery, is earnest and repentant. He does not fight for custody like a duel. He offers presence and the ugly, beautiful admission that he was young. Lena listens. Maya listens. Julian listens. It is one of the growing seasons of their lives, a time where things are pruned and grafted and new branches begin to form. The man becomes part of a broader ecosystem rather than a rival. He becomes occasionally useful as a relative who can teach whistling on quiet evenings. The lesson is that families can be plural and that scarcity is often a decision. Winter arrives. There is a time when Maya gets sick and all the grown-ups converge like satellites around a small sun. Julian takes the night shift at the hospital and learns how to be small in a big room. He holds a small hand with a band of tape and reads nonsense poetry by flashlight. Lena watches him and sees him do the smallest, truest things. He fetches iced chips and refuses to text while someone is speaking. She sees him make tea the way someone is making an offering. On a night when the city freezes, Julian drives to the bakery with a box of pastries and a nervousness that approximates a heartbeat. He finds Lena arranging cupcakes. She takes the box and looks at him like a woman who has attended to hard things and is not easily moved. He says, quietly, I want to try, not to own you and not to rescue, but to be small things with you. Dinners, stories, broken bicycles fixed, and mornings that are not for work. Lena's answer is not immediate. She has been through storms that taught her the skill of slow trust. She takes a cupcake, tastes it, and then smiles in a way that is almost a yes and also a test. Months pass. The relationship that grows is not a Hollywood crescendo. It is an accumulation of tiny agreements honored. They become guardians of small rituals. Sunday pancakes, a ridiculous handshake that evolves into something they use in stressful corporate meetings, a family calendar that includes mom's quiet time and dad Dunkel's science hour. Julian's office contains now one more photograph. It is of Maya with frosting on her nose and Lena leaning on Julian's shoulder. He looks at it before calls, and sometimes, before a big board meeting, he breathes it in like oxygen. There is a day when Maya whispers to him on the way home from school, "You look like someone who used to be a man who lost things. You are better at keeping things now." He holds her hand and thinks of the man who used to be him. He thinks of the small mercies that made him whole, of the child who had the courage to ask for what she needed out of line and without fear. He thinks of Lena and the way she kept baking despite how many times ovens cooled. He thinks of the other father and the thin line between leaving and returning. The story does not end with a declaration on a bridge or an umbrella scene in the rain. It keeps going in the way real lives do, in small acts repeated. It keeps going in first days of school and in scraped knees, in tax forms and haircuts, in whispered apologies, and in laughter that fills the space where silence used to be the landlord. One evening, after a long day of meetings and school recitals, they sit at the kitchen table, Julian, Lena, and Maya, and make a list of things we are good at. Maya writes in big letters, whistle, cookies, telling lies badly, which is her humor. Julian adds, making sure the bills have enough. Not making the big decisions alone. Lena writes, baking, keeping, loving. They look at the list. It is humble. It is theirs. It contains no guarantees, only intentions. Maya folds the paper and puts it in a jar labeled for rainy days. She says, matter-of-factly, whenever the sky is mad, we open the jar and remember. Julian puts his hand over theirs and feels the small, exact reality of other palms. In the quieting of the house, Maya leans in and says what she whispered in a limo years ago, now softer, like a confession or a benediction.